Welcome to the story. Thanks for being here and clicking on this video. Let's dive into tonight's tale. Just before listening to the story, please don't forget to hit that like button. I'm Anna, I'm 28 years old, and when I was a teenager, I was forced by my family to marry my cousin. That marriage didn't last long. At 22, I got divorced and came back to my parents' house. My dad was paralyzed, and my mom had no income except selling vegetables. My dad handed me over to my cousin, saying, "Now that we're poor and have no dowry, he'll make do with you." But he turned out to be the most ungrateful person of all. Every single day, he'd throw the whole "no dowry" thing in my face. My mother-in-law, who was my aunt, never let a moment pass without reminding me that I had no dowry. And you might not believe this, but in the end, it was because of that, when their second daughter-in-law brought a ton of dowry, that my husband said, "Why should I live with you when you have no dowry? I work myself, I go through hell and back, then I have to go buy a rug and lay it out in this house for you? Why should I do something like that?" I was tongue-tied, I didn't say a word. I just kept saying, "Well, my dad doesn't have it, let me go to work and buy it myself." But he wouldn't let me work, and he wouldn't budge. Before we even moved into our marital home, I found out he'd gone to propose to someone else and gotten a yes. In a panic, they came over and said, "Let's just divorce by mutual agreement." My dad got furious with them and didn't say a thing. He just said, "It's fine, let them divorce. God is great for Anna too." We got divorced without him paying a single dime of alimony or any rights. He went off to live his life, and I stayed in the same house, trying to live mine. I had no strength left for marriage. I couldn't hold down any job. Wherever I'd go to work as a secretary, they'd keep me for 2 weeks at most, then start looking at me funny, and I'd have no choice but to come back home. That went on until one day I headed out to work. My mom had recently developed a disc issue in her neck. She couldn't bend over to clean or fry the vegetables anymore, so she stopped working. Our food, my dad's and mom's doctor visits, everything depended on my salary. But how much could I really do? I couldn't find work anywhere. Lately, for a little while, I'd been secretly going with our neighbor lady, without telling my parents, to clean people's houses. One day, she came to pick me up so we could go to the spot she'd lined up for cleaning. As soon as we got on the bus, she whispered, "The place we're headed to? They have a ton of money. Their house isn't a house, it's like a palace." Last year, I went there one day. They were having a party, and I was part of the staff. After the party, their foreman divided up all the leftover food and handed it out to us. We brought it home. Oh girl, we ate off it for 2 weeks. Look at how much they gave us. We had so much meat and chicken that we ate like kings for those 2 weeks. I wish they'd give us leftovers like that again. But let me tell you, cleaning their house is harder than anywhere else. It's all glass everywhere, huge, with antiques scattered all over the place. You have to be super careful when you're cleaning. Overall, though, for all the hardship, there's some sweetness to it. Something from that family always ends up sticking around. I let out a sigh and said to her, "You're basically lending me $50. This morning, as I was heading out, my mom handed me my dad's prescription and said, "Go fill this." Truth is, I had no money in my pocket, just enough for a bus ticket. I was stuck wondering how I'd even get home that night if I couldn't get his meds. On purpose, I'd left my phone at home so my mom wouldn't call and ask me to pick up something. I didn't want to feel ashamed in front of her. Our neighbor frowned and said, "Why don't you just tell your mom the truth? The poor thing thinks you're working every day, why not tell her your job isn't steady? Anyway, we're going there today. Hopefully they'll pay us up at the end of the night. If they don't, I've got a $20 bill. I'll give it to you so you can buy her the essential pills." I smiled and thanked her, and we didn't exchange another word until we got there. When we arrived at the house, I let out a weak laugh and said, "This place is straight out of a Hollywood movie. Look, the location's just like one." She laughed, undid a bit of her collar, flung it open, and said, "This spot's super classy. We've gotta act classy too." I burst out laughing and said, "You're right, you really are classy. You don't look like a maid at all." She laughed and said, "Now you're making fun of me." From the moment I stepped into that house, I felt like I was in a movie the whole time, like it was all so fantastical and weird. And my gut feeling was spot on. From that moment forward, my life changed just like in those nighttime films. We went inside, and a sullen, impatient woman came up to us and said, "I want you to massage all the wood in the living room with oil, clean the floors with alcohol, and polish the mirrors so well that they don't even look like mirrors anymore. No one should notice they're there." My face had gone pale from how strict she was being, and as I stared at the endless hall, she asked, "Have you had breakfast? We've set the breakfast table for you. After you eat, get to your work." As soon as the woman left, Emily, our neighbor, said, "See? Despite their strictness, good things come to people. Where have they ever given us breakfast like this? Come on, let's get some breakfast flowing through our veins, then we'll tackle the work." In the corner of the hall, there was a big table with a cloth spread over it, and a full elaborate breakfast laid out. There were 2 dirty plates on the table too. It was clear 2 people had eaten breakfast and left. They'd arranged the ham in the shape of a flower, with olives in the center. Emily grabbed it and shoved the ham, still in that flower shape, into her mouth. While she chewed, she quickly started making bites for herself with her hands. She said to me, "Why aren't you eating?" With a lump in my throat, I told her, "Without my mom and dad, it won't go down my throat." She made a disgusted face and said, "Is this the time to think about stuff like that? Sit down and eat already. How much more are you going to make me mad?" I laughed, popped a chocolate with strawberry cream on top into my mouth. It was so delicious. Seeing the coffee that they'd kept warm over a candle, with the lid off everywhere, I quickly grabbed a cup and poured myself some coffee. Then I started eating just like Emily. There was so much on the table, we'd eaten a ton, but it was still full. While I was sipping my coffee, I stared, mesmerized. She was putting a cookie in her mouth, topping it with a slice of cantaloupe, then washing it down with orange juice. At the same time, she'd grabbed a croissant and was dipping it in chocolate to put in her mouth. I quietly said, "Emily, don't stuff yourself too much. If you get too full, we won't be able to work." She tilted her mouth toward me and said, "None of your business, as long as you don't have work to do. Tonight when you go to sleep, you'll probably be full, but the next 2 days you'll regret not eating more." Once we'd eaten our fill, we got up and got to work. Just like she'd asked, we cleaned every nook and cranny of the hall until it sparkled. Everywhere was shining and spotless. It was around 2:30 in the afternoon. We'd arrived here at 7 a.m. From exhaustion, I felt like the bones in my arms were breaking. Don't even get me started on the pain in my lower back. This is really hard and grueling. It's no different from the manual labor men do. Once everything was clean, Emily rang the bell. The moment she did, the same maid who'd come to greet us showed up. She glanced around, smiled, and said, "Give me your." My eyes widened in shock at the woman's audacity, and Auntie Emily, who was quick to flare up, said, "Well, you're no different from me. Just because you're sitting around waiting for death doesn't mean I can't live my life." The woman laughed mockingly and said, "You're comparing yourself to me? You're old enough to be my grandma, and you're picking a fight?" The argument between Emily and the woman heated up. I was terrified that they might not pay us and throw us out. I'd been working like a dog in this house since morning. On the other hand, the expectant eyes of my mom and dad flashed before me, and I started intervening. I tried to calm Auntie down, but she had no intention of settling. She was really furious, and she had every right to be. The woman standing in front of her was incredibly rude and brazen. I went over to the woman and said, "Ma'am, you're right, whatever you say is correct. Auntie is just saying something. After all, I'm still completely mesmerized by your beauty. For God's sake, don't make this into a pointless argument. We had no goal here except to work." You're right, exhaustion got to us, and we joked around for a few moments. I understand you, you have every right to be angry, but please forgive us. In return, I've cleaned the house from the bottom of my heart. If you go look, you'll see everything is sparkling. Right now, I'll make your yard as pretty as a bouquet of flowers and hand it over to you. It's not fitting for someone as beautiful as you to sit through arguments like this." The woman looked at me for a few moments, then quietly said, "You really mean that?" I didn't know what she was getting at, so I looked at her in surprise and expectation. She gave herself a half glance, then stared into my eyes again and said, "Am I really beautiful?" I quickly exaggerated. "Well, when you first came in, I was in shock from seeing this much beauty, both the beauty and, mashallah, you smell so good, and you're so tasteful. A person is left stunned and dazed by you on first sight. It's completely clear from the color of your hair, along with the sandals and dress you're wearing." She raised an eyebrow and said, "How so?" I smiled ear to ear and said, "Well, the color of your sandals matches the ring on your finger, and the color of your dress goes with the lenses in your eyes. Your hair has such a beautiful harmony with your outfit. And most attractively of all, it's you who's given life to all of it. You're truly stunning." "Ma'am, I'm surprised you're arguing with Emily." Emily muttered angrily under her breath, "May dust be on your head, you don't throw a person's dignity and pride underfoot like this. May dust be on your head." Ignoring Auntie, the lady gestured for me to come to her. I stepped toward her. Finally, she smiled and said, "Then follow me, and you, clean here alone until you become a person." Auntie Emily, who was looking at us pleadingly, I turned back to her and mouthed, "I'll be right back to help you." Then I followed behind the woman. We went inside the house, got in the elevator, and she pressed the button. We went up, and when we entered her room, I couldn't even imagine in my wildest dreams that a room like this existed for a woman. A 40 square meter space surrounded on all sides by shelves, one wall full of shelves just for evening gowns, another wall for blouses, pants, and things like that, another wall packed with shoes, sneakers, sandals, slippers, basically every kind of footwear I'd ever seen in my life, and another shelf up top full of bags and hats, and down below full of makeup. I could never have imagined someone having a closet like this. I didn't even know if it was called a closet or a room, but it was mesmerizing. There were so many clothes, accessories, hats, and such in it that it made your head spin. The woman, who at first glance seemed like a total hot mess, was now looking at me like a thirsty person who'd reached water. She took my hands and sat me down on a chair made of swan feathers, then hurriedly and rapidly said, "I'm going to a party today. I want to look really beautiful. Can you help me choose what to wear?" I smiled, and while I was still in a daze, my shoulders shrugged involuntarily as I said, "How wonderful, I'd love to do that." That's when I learned her name was Sarah. Right from that first meeting, I realized this lady had serious issues. Imagine, she wanted to wear a dress that didn't cover any part of her body, make her already dark skin even darker to turn it into a screaming phosphorescent tan. What torture that would be. She grabbed a huge necklace and hung it around her neck. There was a wide, massive ring that reminded me of cow or sheep bells, or maybe a dog collar. Then she tied her hair up tightly on top of her head, pulled out something like gel from a drawer, smeared it on her hair, and flattened it down. With shoes on, she turned to me and said, "How do I look?" It was ridiculous, in the truest sense, scary and ugly, but I didn't say a word. Right from that first meeting, I'd realized she wanted nothing but praise and compliments. Even giving an opinion might not sit well with her. While I was shocked by the outfit and look she'd put together for herself, I smiled and said, "You become infinitely beautiful. I never thought someone could have the heart and guts to match colors like this together." With her droopy eyes that had terrifying icy lenses she'd thrown in them, and her cheeks, which had so much filler that they covered her eyes, as she looked at me and said, "Do you really mean that? Why hasn't this occurred to me before? I'm truly unparalleled in this field. No one has my courage and boldness in styling." With envy, I glanced at the pink dress hanging from her rack and said, "Yes, for example, if it were me, I wouldn't risk wearing this pink dress at all." She smiled and said, "Since you came, your eyes have been fixed on this dress. Has it stolen your heart?" I laughed and said, "Well, what can I say? Truth is, your whole room has stolen my heart. You're infinitely tasteful, and this place is so beautiful. I never thought a room like this existed in reality. This isn't a room, it's paradise. From the moment we entered, this is my room." My mouth dropped open, Does someone set up 2 sets of sofas in a room? How rich and comfortable this woman was. She took the pink dress from the rack and, like throwing away a piece of trash, brazenly tossed it into my arms and said, "Take it, this is for you." I picked it up from the ground. It was a tulle dress with very delicate little flowers in some places. It was so beautiful. She went to the mirror, picked up the brown lipstick, and applied more to her lips, then said angrily, "He bought this dress. I've never liked his taste at all. I don't like this dress one bit, the one you like." Ignoring what she was saying, with excitement I held the dress up to myself in front of the mirror. And seeing it, I felt like sugar melting in my heart. I'd never had an evening dress before. At that moment, there was a knock on the door, and then the maid opened it and said, "Mrs. Sarah." Mr. Birad's mother called and said, "What happened with the surrogate womb?" "They said if you can't find someone, they'll take matters into their own hands." Sarah said impatiently, "Very well, I told you I'll find one in time. I'll definitely find one this week." The maid looked at her and quietly said, "Yes, ma'am," and left. As she went out, Sarah started talking. "I don't want to have a baby that ruins my figure. I want my husband to get a surrogate womb. In exchange for this, we're going to give her a house. I don't want to choose just anyone, I want to choose someone who's completely to my liking." I got curious and said, "How so?" "Meaning she comes and gets pregnant in your place?" She nodded yes and said, "Yes, she gets pregnant, gives birth to the baby, and goes on her way. I'm not interested in kids. Birad has stubbornly decided he wants a baby. Of course, he doesn't want it himself. I know his devilish mother is behind this. So, whoever I approve of and accepts, I'll give her a house, and definitely set aside a very good monthly salary for her." "How old are you?" I glanced at her and said, "I'm 28. Her eyebrows went up. "You don't look it at all. I thought you were 20 or 22. Would you accept? Are you with someone? Single or in a relationship?" I stood up and said, "No, I'm single, but my mom and dad wouldn't allow me to accept something like this. Let me go help Emily a bit, the poor thing. Sorry, she was jealous of your boundless beauty. After all, there's nothing in her heart. Let me go help her." Her eyebrows raised excitedly. "So, anyone who finds fault with me is jealous of me?" I winked and said, "No doubt about it." She said again, "I wish you'd come, think about my offer. If you accept, let me know tomorrow." At that moment, I didn't think even 1% that I'd want to accept, but when I got home that night, I found out the landlord had come and thrown my mom and dad out of the house. They were sitting in the alley. Everything changed. Before I even knew what was what I was accepting, I was under so much pressure. The next morning, I went to that mansion and told Sarah I accept, and asked her about the terms. She said, "As soon as we get married, Nika, the house will be in my name as dowry, and after giving birth to the baby, I have to get out of here." I did a quick search on Google and realized I'm going into the operating room where their baby will be placed in my womb. I hadn't thought it through this far. I didn't realize it was more than that. Sarah hadn't told me I'd have to give my own child to them. I accepted her offer and took some money. I took my mom and dad to a guest house, gathered all our household stuff in the yard. Auntie Emily was straightforward. I went straight to my mom, sat down, and told her everything that had happened. She burst into tears and said, "They haven't touched you until now. Now you're going off to get pregnant? For what?" Crying, I said, "Mom, everyone has their destiny. If mine is this, it's okay. In exchange, we'll own a house afterward. You know how easy it'll be if we own a house. No more rent. Whatever I earn, we'll all enjoy it together. Plus, they'll give a good salary. After the baby is born, we'll go to another city. You'll achieve the dream you've had since I was little. You'll own a house, live comfortably. Enough already. How much more hardship should we endure just so I stay untouched?" She said, "Every night my heart aches, my liver burns, seeing my daughter in this state. I wanted you to marry a respectable man, and I'd show your cousin and his mom what you were worthy of. Seeing my daughter marry like this burns me up." I gave a bitter smile and said, the important thing is our peace, otherwise, they'll always have something to say. Don't think about those things. If I can't handle this, don't make me regret telling you the truth. Don't fight with Dad and tell him everything. He's not like you and me, he has honor, it'll hurt him. He's been ashamed enough of us all these years. Crying, she hugged me and said, I'll be indebted to you till the end of my life. You've been covering the house expenses for years now, and even now you're sacrificing yourself like this for me and your dad. I said, that's nothing, I'm content. I'd even give my life for you. After telling my mom everything, on the day Sarah had set, I went to that house. You know everything, right? Sarah explained it all. Naively, I nodded and said, yes, they don't want to have the baby themselves, it would ruin their figure. I have to be the surrogate womb. He quickly nodded as if to say okay and said, then I'll tell them to come, let's get this done as fast as possible. I sat down. About 3 or 4 hours later, they called me out. A man in a suit had arrived. Sarah came downstairs too, wearing a tight leopard print overall dress, her hair plastered to her scalp like always. She had very brown lipstick the same color as the leopard spots on her dress, and purple lenses in her eyes. Damn, she looked so magazine-ready at home. Birad's lawyer, upon seeing Sarah, lowered his head and quietly, seriously greeted her under his breath. Then, turning to Birad, he said, a 130 square meter apartment as Mar, correct? Birad nodded yes, and then I realized they were marrying me off, Nika. In surprise, I said, why are we getting married? Wasn't our deal just the baby? And an operating room at most for pregnancy? Birad listened to my murmurs and then quietly said, no, how can a baby be without a mother? Your name has to be on its birth certificate. I don't want Sarah's name on my child's birth certificate. If you're the one giving birth to the baby, your name has to be on the birth certificate too. Haven't you been married before? You didn't tell me you were a virgin. With embarrassment, I looked at him and said, I was married to my cousin before, but since it fell apart during the engagement, my mom followed up and had his name crossed out of my ID. He looked at me for a few moments. I felt like he was pitying my miserable life. He nodded as if to say okay and didn't say anything else. As soon as the Nika was over, they gave me the keys to the house along with the address and said the driver would take me there. I arrived there, called Auntie Emily, gave her the address, and said, come here. They all got up and came, full of excitement and joy, especially my mom, who knew this house was ours now. Otherwise, my dad thought the company I worked for had given it to us, but even so, he was still happy. That very first night, we moved everything with the neighbor's van. My mom didn't sleep until morning. She arranged the house's furnishings with so much love. She said she'd never thought she'd become a homeowner. Her biggest dream had always been to own a house one day. Now, with that house, she was so happy. She was even more thrilled that it had an elevator. She said she'd seen a park on the way there and was making promises to my dad. Now he could move around without stairs because of the elevator. She'd take him to the park every evening. My dad would light up with excitement. I smiled. Seeing them happy was a whole world to me. I turned to my dad and mom and said, from now on, my job is like this, we work shifts. I won't be able to come home month to month. My dad was worried, but my mom talked to him a lot, reassuring him it was a good job, and Auntie Emily convinced him too. Finally, my dad agreed. I gathered the few belongings I had, don't know why, but my hand reached for that pink dress. I took it too. I packed all my stuff and, with the car that was still waiting for me, went back to that house. Sarah had given me a room, what she considered the worst and least equipped one. But to me, it was beautiful because it had a window. All the rooms in this house were en suites, with bathroom and toilet, and this was the only one that wasn't. I'd have to use the bathrooms and other rooms for showering and the toilet, but it didn't matter to me at all because this room had a huge window, a bed, and a compact wardrobe. Really, what she saw as the most ridiculous and under-equipped room was, to me, the best room in the world. I put my stuff in the wardrobe, let my hair down my back. It was around noon when I'd arrived here. Now, after taking some time to arrange my things, it was 2:30 in the afternoon. I had on a simple black dress that went down to just below my knees, and it was late summer, with the weather turning toward fall. The housemaid knocked on my room door and said, "Sir is waiting for you in his room." I went out. Oh, by the way, did I tell you my hair went down to near my knees? My mom loved my hair, so I never cut it. I knocked on the door. A few minutes later, a voice said, "You can come in." I opened the door and entered. Seeing an old woman in a green pantsuit, I froze in place. I guessed she must be Birad's mom. She gave me a scrutinizing look from head to toe, then turned to Birad and said, "I prefer her to Sarah, with all her nerdiness." In the library mirror, I quietly and discreetly glanced at myself. How did she know I was a nerd? What gave it away? Birad said impatiently, "I don't know which one of you I have to put up with. Now this one's new. Happy now, Mom?" He shrugged and said, "You talk like she's pregnant and waiting to give birth. Where's she going to get pregnant? Plus, she's too young." Birad put his coffee cup on the table and said, "She's 28, that's just how she looks." The woman stood up and said, "God grant me a good end. I'm heading back to the garden. This weekend, everyone's together, make sure you come too." He stood up and saw his mom off. After she left, he closed the door, looked at me, and said, "Why did you wear this dress in front of me? No one's here but me." That I was still stupidly thinking I was going to the operating room to get pregnant. I said, "Well, why should I take off my clothes in front of you?" He laughed and said, "Sarah's full of shit. I thought you were a normal person. Now I see she brought another weirdo. Sarah turns everything she touches into something strange." My brows furrowed too. How insulting this family was. Impatiently, I said, "When am I going to the operating room?" He took my hand, flicked my hair down with one finger, and said, "What operating room? Sarah is infertile. She's tried so hard to fix her problem, but it hasn't worked. Instead of Sarah giving me a baby, you're going to give me one. The process starts tonight. If you're not pregnant in 2 months, then we'll go to the doctor. I want you to get pregnant naturally." With embarrassment and mumbling, I looked into his eyes and said, "What do you mean? I thought Sarah couldn't have kids because she didn't want to ruin her figure, that I was going to be your wife." His eyebrows shot up, and he said, "Going to be? Didn't you become my wife yesterday? Which room are you staying in?" I stepped back from him. How naively I'd glossed over everything. Suddenly, I burst into tears and, without answering him, said, "I can't accept something like this." He looked at me with a furrowed brow in surprise. Crying, I said, "I can't leave my own child here and go that I don't even know who you are to bring a baby for you unseen and unknown. I thought your baby was going to grow in my body, not my own child. Why didn't you tell me this from the start? I'd rather die than let my child be taken from me. Leave my baby here to God's mercy and go?" He smiled and said, "Anna, I don't want a child without a mother either. If you're a good girl, you can raise your child. Look at me, I have no life at all. Everything about me is up in the air. Since my teens, I've loved kids. I want a child. Whether you raise it for me or a nanny does, it makes no difference to me. Besides, who knows what our ultimate fate will be? What do you know about what's going to happen in the future? The future is nothing but an illusion. Don't cry over nothing, leave it to God. Tell me, where's your room?" I wiped my tears and said, "The room at the end of the hall." He gave a faint smile and said, "No need to stay there. Pack your things and come to my room. For now, you'll live in my room, and let me tell you this, Sarah is sick. She has a very severe psychological problem. Under no circumstances do I want you getting into arguments with her. If a fight breaks out between you two one day, I won't blame her, she's sick. You're 100% at fault. You have to obey whatever she says, got it?" Ignoring his commands and prohibitions, I said, "How did you agree to have someone you don't know bear your child?" He laughed and said, "From the day Sarah introduced you, I had them investigate you. They said so many good things about you, how modest and good you are, how you take care of your family. What more could a man as a child's father want? Could he dream of more than this? I'm not going to fall in love with you and gaze at your eyes and brows. You're going to be my child's mother, and the fact that you're a virgin makes it even more suitable. I nodded as if to say okay and left from there. I told the maid that Barad said we have to live in one room, and that he'd arrange my things there himself. Then he advised that under no circumstances should Sarah find out I'm living in that room, because she's always dreamed of living next to him, but he's always kept their rooms separate. That day, I didn't eat lunch, but for dinner at 7 p.m., we sat around a table. Barad was at the head of the table, with me and Sarah facing each other. Barad said to Sarah, "I got you a ticket to Spain. I think you should go for a trip, get some more sun, rest and have fun. Come back before fall starts. About 1 or 2 weeks, I think, go on vacation." Sarah looked at me and said, "Anna should come with me." Barad, without glancing at me, said, "No, Anna has to go to the doctor to bring you a pretty baby. Go on your trip, my dear." Sarah said excitedly, "Okay." And after dinner, she went to pack her suitcase, and Barad sent her to the airport with the driver and asked me to go to their room. I was so stressed and embarrassed, I stood in a corner. He went to open his closet door to get clothes and suddenly noticed my clothes. Seeing the pink dress, he said in surprise, "This dress is yours?" Embarrassed, I looked at the dress and said, "Sarah gave it to me. She said she doesn't like it, but I really loved this dress." He said, "It's yours then." He looked at me and said, "I love this dress too. What do you think, want to wear it tonight? I'll go take a shower. While I'm showering, put it on." He went into the bathroom. I'd been so stressed since morning that I'd showered 3 times already. I really didn't need another shower that I put on the dress. It was just as I'd imagined, incredibly beautiful, with puffed princess sleeves and a lovely neckline. Now that Sarah was gone, I said to myself I'd go to her room and do a little makeup too. I went there, put on pink lipstick, some brown eyeshadow on my lids, and mascara. I didn't want to do too much makeup and make it obvious I'd dolled up. I did the most subtle makeup possible and hurriedly straightened my hair with an iron. I wanted to take one of her sandals to wear, but I couldn't, that would be too ugly. I closed her room door and went back to the room. I didn't even have any perfume to spray. I just stood there motionless in place. Barad opened the bathroom door, and upon seeing me, he stared for a few moments. How was I to know he'd seen so many different girls drowned in makeup and surgeries and such, and now, seeing me completely simple and natural, he'd fall in love with me. I never thought the first night I stepped into the world of womanhood would be this good. God takes something from you and gives you something better in return. My cousin where, Barad where? He lit a few scented candles while showering me with endearments. I didn't understand a thing and felt awkward that I hadn't put on any perfume, but he said he loved being able to smell my natural scent, not those perfumes that give him headaches. It was like God, after all those hardships and shortages, had suddenly placed Barad in my life. Sure, I had a ton of anxiety and felt awful, but being with him gave me such a good feeling. Every day, we'd go to nature together. I'd wear one of Sarah's dresses, he'd given permission, and we'd head out to the outdoors and have the best time, joking around, laughing. Little by little, we were getting to know each other, and I felt like I was falling in love with him. And that's exactly where I fell for him, when I found out Sarah was his cousin. In their childhood, Sarah's mom was cheating on her dad, and her dad walked in on her in bed with someone else, right in front of Sarah. And he'd always do it in front of her like that. In the middle of that fight between her parents, both of them died together. Sarah was raised by their grandmother. Then, when they grew up, they told Barad he had to marry her. And Sarah has severe mental and psychological problems from her childhood. No matter how much therapy she goes to, she doesn't get better. He said Barad married her, and they're supposed to stay just like this forever. Everyone they know, the friends and family, knows she has a serious mental health issue. She can only stay on her feet with pills. But that doesn't mean he can just leave her alone. That's when I truly realized what a good person Barad is. Imagine, someone with all that money and resources marries his cousin even though she's sick. He spends a fortune on her, sends her on the best trips, to the top doctors, and still says, "If I build any life for myself, I can't leave my cousin behind." I compared him to my cousin, who'd been bragging and lording it over me since I was a kid, because as far back as I could remember, my dad never went to work, he was paralyzed. My mom could only scrape together money from selling vegetables for the doctor's bills and essentials. They'd always mock my old, worn-out clothes. When we were kids playing, they'd put me in the middle and chant "boo" around me. They'd even eat snacks right in front of me and not give me any. I'll never forget one time they unwrapped an ice cream cone and threw the wrapper on the ground. I went and picked up the trashy ice cream wrapper. That's how miserably I'd grown up, and everyone had seen it. He didn't want me and rejected me over a dowry. Meanwhile, Sarah had been pampered and spoiled just because she was alone. Birad said he couldn't bear to leave her by herself. Getting to know Birad was so enjoyable for me that he bought me really nice things. We'd go to great restaurants, joke around. He was just a cheerful, kind-hearted guy. He'd tell me he'd always dreamed of a girl like me coming into his life, someone who appreciated him, had fun with him, and loved his daughter. He'd say he was amazed that despite giving me so much money, I didn't want to get cosmetic surgeries. I wouldn't tell him, "Dad, you give me so much love, you compliment my looks so much that I have this much confidence. I don't want surgery. Otherwise, if you ignored me like Sarah, of course I'd go through fire and water to change myself so you'd see me." My relationship with Birad was really good. We understood each other so well. Everything in our life was going great. Sarah was there too. She'd sometimes bother me, but I never said anything. I tried to be a good friend to her. I'd get her ready for the parties she'd go to, compliment her, give her ideas on what to do. But you know I'm not a stranger. I never imposed my own taste on her. I'd just encourage her weird, eccentric style so she'd feel good. I'd never tell her Birad hated brown lipstick. He loves the natural color of lips, like pink rose petals. That I'd never tell her that bitter, classy perfume wasn't to Birad's liking. It gave him headaches. I'd compliment her perfume a ton. I tried to let her be happy on her own, and for me to be the only one Birad was interested in. On weekends, we'd go to the garden with Birad, and I'd make a different dish every day there. He loved my home cooking and was thrilled that I was so good at making food. We'd have such a great time there and then come back. Until one day, in the 3rd month, I realized I was pregnant. We were over the moon. Even Sarah was really happy. After hearing the news about my pregnancy, I went to our house. I'd bought a ton of snacks and food for my mom and dad. During this time, I'd been wiring money to my mom's account non-stop. Now that I'd come myself, I'd bought a bunch of stuff, even clothes for them. My mom was so happy. I went to her and said I was pregnant. She told me she'd found a really good doctor and was taking my dad to him. My eyes welled up. She said he'd started physiotherapy too. His neck was much better. They watched all the TV series together at night, they ate snacks, went for walks in the park in the evenings. My dad's mood had changed. I glanced at my dad's beat-up wheelchair and said, "Mom, why don't we buy him a new one? I'll wire you money this week, buy him a wheelchair." She smiled and said, "Okay, thank you a million times." After soaking up so much energy from them and feeling good, I went back home. Deep down, I was anxious. Now that I was pregnant, what if Birad's attitude toward me changed? But not only did it not change, it got even better. I was super attentive to him too. I'd do whatever he wanted. Sometimes on certain nights, we'd sit together on the balcony and pour our hearts out. I'd talk about my hardships in childhood. He'd tell me about his life, how hopeless he'd been, how he'd loved a girl but was forced to marry Sarah, the struggles he'd endured back then. Then we'd conclude that we had to really appreciate each other. We'd trusted each other at first sight and gotten married on a total risk. Now we were the happiest together, and we knew only God was behind it all. My pregnancy days flew by one after another. Birad tried to send Sarah on trips frequently, but lately she wasn't going. Every morning when she'd wake up, she'd pick fights with the maid over nothing, sometimes even pulling her hair. Little by little, the argument started with me too. Whatever she said to me, I'd just say yes. Then I'd take her hand and move it to my belly, feel the baby moving. In those moments, she'd calm down a bit. She never raised a hand to me because of the baby, but the poor maid, she'd hit her whenever she felt like it. Birad called her doctor, and the doctor said she needed to be hospitalized. Birad would say, "What if I hospitalize her and everyone says I did it on purpose to get a wife? Take Sarah to the asylum before she goes completely insane." No matter what I told him, "Dad, this woman's not okay, her condition is dire, listen to her doctor," he'd say, "No, we'll talk to her ourselves, calm her down. If Sarah goes to the asylum, she'll lose her mind. She's dependent on me, dependent on this house, she shouldn't go." Until one day, we realized Sarah was choking herself. I screamed in horror. I was the first to notice because in this house, I was always on high alert, making sure she didn't slip up. Terrified, I yelled for Birad and ran to the chair, putting it under her feet. Birad came and saved her. Then he hugged her tightly and, crying, said, "Don't you think about what you'd do to me if you did this?" Crying and sobbing, she grabbed Birad's hands and said, "I'm suffering, Birad. I'm ugly. Yesterday at the party, everyone mocked me. I'm so ugly that you don't love me." Birad, with tears in his eyes, said, "Why wouldn't I love you? What kind of talk is that?" She burst into tears and said, "If you loved me, you'd go to the balcony and talk with me too. You'd let me into your room. You'd buy things for me. You'd hurriedly put that pink dress on her, not because you love it so much. Why do you get so excited when she wears that dress? Why, when I wore it, did your brows furrow and you say it doesn't suit my skin tone?" Birad signaled to the maid to call her doctor, then started calming her down. I wiped my tears and stepped away from them so they could be alone. I wore that pink dress hurriedly, in a strangely obsessive way. Birad was fond of it. Of course, he had every right, it was so beautiful. And surely, that pink dress didn't suit skin that's infinitely tanned to the point of burning, meaning, hadn't Sarah realized all these years that Birad loved fair skin? Why did she execute everything he hated so perfectly, then expect love and affection? That day, Birad realized her condition was really dire. He sent her to the asylum. We agreed to visit her every Thursday. She loved pizza, especially pepperoni. Every Thursday, we'd get pizza and go see her, we'd talk and laugh. Since she was there, her condition had improved, and every time she'd give me a request. One time, "Bring makeup." Another time, "Why didn't you bring my lenses?" Whatever she wanted, I'd get it for her and bring it. Whether Birad, the driver, or I did it. One day, she told me, "Bring my curling iron to the asylum." Her doctor said she spends hours doing her makeup and stands in front of the crazies saying, "I'm so-and-so," or "Dr. Lady." One day, while I was packing her stuff to bring, my attention was caught by a lipstick amid all her makeup. All the cosmetics she'd bought were top brand, super fancy, like, one swipe of the lipstick and it felt like velvet. I picked it up, swiped a bit on my lips, it was so pretty. Right there, among her makeup, I did my makeup and packed the rest. I brought the lipstick, it was really nice. I said, "This won't be of use to her, she didn't ask for it. Let it stay for me that I was about 8 months pregnant." I handed the stuff to Birad. He grumbled, "Look at what this mute money's been wasted on. Every week, I'm hauling bags of makeup there, and it's still not enough." I laughed and said, "I swear, if you'd opened a makeup store, you could have bought another house." He laughed and said, "God save me from Sarah, she came into this world just to cause me loss from beginning to end." He put the pizzas on the table and handed her the makeup bag. She was in a bad mood today. I went to her and said, "Oh God, look at your hair curls, how beautiful you've become. Today, what do you think if I album all the photos you send me and bring them next time? The photos you send me are truly extraordinary." She looked at me impatiently, her eyes were red. She glanced at my belly and said, "When's your baby coming?" A smile on my lips, I said, "In a month." Birad raised an eyebrow and said, "Not even a month and a half. 2 months from now, the doctors say the baby's heart isn't beating right. We have no hope this baby can be born healthy." That's when I realized what she meant. She didn't want anyone to know the baby was coming so she wouldn't be separated from it. I nodded as if yes and faked a lump in my throat. Seeing my emotion seemed to improve her mood a bit. Quietly, she said, Birad, ever since this woman came and you brought her, you threw me here. Otherwise, I was living in the mansion before. She's the cause of our bad state, she's even the cause of my son's bad state. Once the baby is born, I'll finish her off. Terrified, I looked at Birad. He met my eyes, meaning, don't worry. He sat next to Sarah and said, no, dear, she doesn't even reach the hem of your garment. Look, I bought pizza for you. I got Coke too. What more could you want? Where does a woman find a husband like this? Come on, get some pizza in your veins. Then, with the makeup, hey, today, come do Anna's makeup. Let's see if she can become as beautiful as you. She stood up and said, I'm not hungry. I want to do Anna's makeup. I sat down, terrified and trembling, putting a pillow on my belly so she wouldn't hit it by accident. She opened her things one by one. Birad was busy eating his pizza when suddenly his eyes fell on my lips, and scrutinizingly, he said, you used my lipstick? I remember buying this from Switzerland for myself. Where is it? Who gave you permission to use my makeup? Don't tell me you're wearing my clothes too. Terrified, I covered the princess crop top I was wearing, which was hers, and said, oh, for your sake, are you upset? I didn't know you hated this lipstick. And honestly, I didn't think it was necessary. I didn't realize our tastes differ because I like this one. I said you don't like it, but if you do, I'll have the driver bring you one tomorrow. Come on, do my makeup already. I want to look as pretty as you. She was looking at me angrily. Her moods were totally off today. I looked at her again. I was scared of her eyes. She said, why do you always answer me so sweetly no matter what I say? Why are you so kind? Your eyes are shaped like my mom's eyes. I hate you. When you're with Birad and laughing, it reminds me of my mom. I hate you. Before she even finished speaking, she grabbed the pillow and shoved it in my face. I don't know how I freed myself from there, but I ran out. Poor Birad didn't know whether to calm her down or come after me. He ignored Sarah and came after me, took my hands, and said, don't be scared, it's bad for the baby. I shouldn't have brought you here. Anyway, that day passed without incident. Birad and I went back home, and about a month later, I went into labor and our son was born. When our son was born, Birad asked me to introduce him to my mom and dad, and they came to visit us here. At first, my dad was really upset with me, but then when he saw what kind of house we lived in and that Birad was a good man, he didn't say anything more. Why mom and dad stayed as our guests for 2 days, then went back to their house. During this time, Birad was visiting Sarah frequently until one day, the maid at our house came back to me and said, why do you let your husband keep going to see that woman? He leaves the newborn baby every day for hours in the hospital. What does he want? If she was so dear to him, he should have chosen her for his life. I lowered my head and said, I feel so much guilt. I came into this life. I ruined hers. Now how can I tell my husband not to go see her? She smirked and said, this life was already ruined. They had nothing to do with each other month after month. They'd sit at the table together by force. Birad was with a different woman every day. That's how she'd gotten her incurable illness. Now a beautiful woman has come, perfect in every way, good-tempered. He should put her on his head, not suddenly act like Sarah's so dear now. Before your marriage, she wasn't that dear to him like she is now. I don't want to ruin your life, but I'm saying this out of concern for you, girl. Don't let your husband keep going there so much. He'll get attached to that woman. What then? A person sees a sick girl and pities her, keeps going there to pity her. What's the point? You've had a baby now, and you've been with your husband for a while. It's obvious the wife is getting old for her husband. Pull your husband together a bit. Too much kindness isn't good. After she talked to me, I picked up the phone and called Birad. When he answered with hello, I said, where are you, darling? He sounded tired. At Sarah's. She's not doing well at all. Impatiently, I said, I hope she gets better soon, darling. The baby keeps vomiting. I feel like his color is yellowish. Can you come home? He said hurriedly, yes, I'm coming right now. About 40 minutes later, he got home. He was exhausted. He went to the baby, saw him sleeping, let out a sad sigh, and said, "It's good he's sleeping now." I said, "I'll get up, shower, then take him to the doctor." He showered, and we took the baby to the doctor. The doctor chatted with us a bit to get money from us. Before we headed home, I said, "Let's go out for dinner." He smiled and said, "Yeah, I'd love to go out too. For the first time, we'll take our son out." We went out, had dinner, then drove around a bit with the car, and finally came back home. Before we went up, he took my hand in the elevator and said, "Did you know I've always envied this day, getting in the car with my wife and child, having dinner, coming back home?" That night, before bed, I acted all whiny and said, "Birad, I feel like I've got postpartum depression, I'm not feeling well at all. I just sit in a corner and cry all the time." Poor Birad, whose eyes widened in fear at the word depression, quickly hugged me and said, "Have I died for you to sit here so sad like this? We'll go on a trip." This whole time, I've been caught up with Arad, our son, or with Sarah. All my work is piled up. I'll sort out the company stuff for a few days, then we'll go on vacation. True to his promise, he handled his work for a few days, and then we went on vacation. We had such a great time. When we got back from the trip, something strange happened. They said Sarah had left the asylum. A man came and got permission and took her. No matter what Birad said, "I'm her husband, I have to give permission." The doctor said he came with legal documents from her father and got her release and left. No matter how much Birad searched for her, he couldn't find her. Now, about 2 years have passed, and she's still missing. Sometimes we find some letters, some full of longing, some threatening. I'm so scared, there's always this anxiety in my heart. The whole house has cameras and guards, but still, I'm terrified. I don't know where Sarah is or what she's doing. I hope wherever she is, she's okay and doesn't harm us. By the way, can you tell me what you feel about me after hearing my story? Do you think I'm the one who broke up the home, the reason Sarah's condition got worse, or was she like this from the beginning? The guilt and fear don't let me enjoy my life. In these 3 years that I've been Birad's wife, thank God, it's been really good. He always covers my family's expenses, takes care of me, and loves our son so much that I want to have another baby, but Birad and I think our son is too spoiled, it might hurt him. We're waiting until he's 4 or 5 to have the next one. But deep down, I always say, what if my story turns out like in the movies, and ends like in the movies too? Like, one day Sarah comes and finishes off me and Birad, takes the baby and runs, who knows? Such thoughts make me go crazy, I swear. So, write your opinions for me, my beautiful friends. Thanks for being with me, thanks for listening to my story. I love you all so much.